Bring up the name Spectrum Holobyte, and you'll find some folks who will recognize the name of the former publishing house for a variety of reasons. Some might recall their Falcon series of flight simulators. Some may know them for the various Super Mario educational games that have received some questionable recognition. Some might even recall the few games they made based on Star Trek: The Next Generation. But for some people, Spectrum Holobyte was the first game publisher to introduce Tetris to the world. And for a time, they actually released a few versions of Tetris in various home computer formats, including today's subject matter, Super Tetris, released in 1991 for MS-DOS, later re-released as part of the Tetris Gold compilation. And just to clear up any potential misconceptions, this Super Tetris has nothing to do with this Super Tetris. They are totally different things. One of the few non-Nintendo based variants of Tetris that I recall playing as a younger fellow, Super Tetris is a twist on the classic Tetris formula. Now, anyone familiar with Tetris should know how the game generally works. You position sets of blocks or tetrominoes in the well and create complete rows to clear them from the board. Once you clear a set number of lines, or in this case clear enough of the debris that you'll reveal the whole picture below, you'll move on to the next level. Generally simple stuff, nothing you haven't seen before. Now here's the twist. Unlike most Tetris variants, Super Tetris gives you a limited number of tetrominoes to clear the board, but you could always gain more by clearing away lines. Each time you clear lines, the next drop will comprise bombs that can be used to clear away whatever garbage blocks lay in your way. These bombs are also the only means of activating the various power-up blocks that range from a variety of effects, either giving you extra moves or clearing away blocks or other things. The game ends when you top out, when you run out of tetrominoes, or if playing timed games, you simply run out of time. In terms of game modes, there's only a handful, and they're mostly slight variants of the usual fare. Your standard single-player marathon can be played at your leisure, or you could play timed games to see how well you perform within the 5 minutes, or 10 minutes, or 15 minutes allotted. And in addition to the usual 2-player versus rounds, you can also play the co-op mode that has you working together to clear away debris and reveal the picture below. For those looking for a version of Tetris without the additional gimmicks, you might as well look elsewhere because you won't find it here. It's all Super Tetris with bombs all the time. And for what it's worth, this is a rather not so shabby variant of a classic formula that adds its own unique bells and whistles without rustling up the core elements too severely. The limited tetrominoes at your disposal, the bomb play, the various power-ups, and the deepening nature of the playfield are subtle touches in spicing up the experience and somewhat differentiating Super Tetris from other iterations of the time, but at its core, it's still classic Tetris gameplay. You're still clearing away lines, you still have those 7 classic tetromino pieces, there are no oddball pieces or segmented pieces, you're not clearing away flash bombs, it's just plain old Tetris with a couple of gimmicks, and it plays rather nicely. Control's pretty straightforward. You could use the keyboard or the mouse or the joystick if you could get that to work. You have 2 rotate buttons to spin your pieces clockwise or counter, and you have a nice soft drop instead of the harsh hard drop that was prevalent with many early Tetris variants. In general, control over your pieces is pretty good, although at times it does feel a touch sensitive, and I would occasionally find myself making silly mistakes as a result, though after a line clear or 2, such mistakes can be fixed somewhat. But try not to make too many, you don't have that many moves on hand. And while using a mouse to play Tetris might sound awkward, it's actually not too bad. One button rotates, the other drops. It's not something I use extensively, but after a while it gets to a point where I like alternating between the keyboard and mouse for gameplay, and you could easily do that despite the main menu giving you an option of one or the other. You want to know something else you could do here? Save your game. And then, at a later date, go back to it and continue where you left off. It's actually not too bad of a feature. Kind of useless for most people, but hey, it's nice to have, I guess. The visual stylings of Super Tetris is based more on circus imagery than anything, and indeed you have lots of circus-based images in the background throughout a good chunk of the game. By today's standards, these pictures are somewhat low quality, low resolution, kinda pixelated, but for the time, they were fairly decent and gave a bit of uniqueness to the overall game. In a way, it sort of reminded me of that Wildlife Tetris game I played a while back, except this playfield has an opaque background of solid white on top and solid black on the bottom so that it's easier to look at the pieces without worrying about any of them blending in with the background. And the playfield and pieces do look fine for what it's worth, although I kinda wish the overall playfield was slightly bigger in scale. That's my only real quibble. Even if you needed the space for 2-player gameplay, you still could have made the boards bigger somewhat. I've seen screenshots of Super Tetris on some other computer formats, and their playfields are fairly bigger. Again, it's only a minor quibble, it doesn't entirely ruin the game. There is a weird bit with the sound here. Super Tetris does feature some semblance of music, as evident on the title screen and the scorecards, and there's even a bit that plays in the beginning of gameplay, but after a short instance of music it just goes silent, leaving you with only sound effects playing. It's rather odd, it feels a bit barren, and no, it's not just me, I've checked other bits here and there, it seems to be a common thing. Sound effects are okay, they're not great, but they're okay. A few musical bits that play are rather pleasant, well-composed melodies that are an easy listen and fit the overall circus theme the game has going for it. It's just too bad that it doesn't loop unless you turn off the sound effects. And, well, the sound effects don't play during the music either. It's kind of weird. A weird observation, strange observation, 'tis all. Overall, Super Tetris is a decent edition of Tetris that retains the core gameplay elements that makes Tetris, well, Tetris. But at the same time adds its own gimmicks and bells and whistles to give the game something of a unique feel, at least for the time when there weren't as many gimmicky versions of Tetris out there as there are today. While there were numerous iterations of Tetris released on PCs during that time frame from a bunch of people, Super Tetris stands out with its distinct presentation and bombastic gameplay. And in fairness, it's a game that still holds up rather well today. For folks with fond nostalgia for this game, or for those with a vested interest in supposedly obscure Tetris games, or for those looking for a decent puzzle game in general, Super Tetris is one worth checking out, either on its own or on the Tetris Gold compilation. All in all, this one's just El Dandy.